everybody. Welcome to this panels on animation on the digital budget. The idea today is you see, $100 million, $200 million crazy budgeted feature films that are animation, but you can actually make some amazing animation with far less funds. And it's more good to do it yourself a lot, and these people here have so many wonderful things to say. My name is Tiffany Gray. I'm the VP of Production and Business Affairs for a company called Extra Credit Studios. We do a bunch of stop motion animation. And our company actually began in the founders of our company's living room doing stop motion on a coffee table. And that's grown now to a YouTube channel that has 900,000 subscribers. I think we have over 100 million views. I want to give everyone here a chance to introduce themselves as well. Go for it.
Gosh, my name is Jason Waite. I'm from the UK. I direct and write a cartoon called Starship Goldfish. It used to be called Sam Sweetnook, but we changed the name to sound less like jizz. And yeah, so we just finished a 22-minute pilot, and now we're in the process of sort of pitching it around, which is a bit of a nice backwards way of doing things, but there you are.
My name is Sam Morris. I'm an animator from Florida. I'm working on my own series as well. Completely by myself. I take do-it-yourself to a whole new extreme. And I'm just trying to expand my production so that I'm not spending all of my free time working on a project that is taking 2 years to produce 7 minutes of animation. So that's me.
I'm Leila. I currently live in LA. I used to live in Israel. And I have a channel in which I make kind of pop culture related popular animated video. Also, like everyone, working on personal stuff and trying to pitch around. Yeah.
Cool. I'm Jake Kringle. I'm an independent producer of animation. Previously, I was the head of production and digital audience development at Frederator, where we produced all the digital products that went out to Channel Frederator, Cartoon Hangover. I'm sure if you guys watch YouTube and you like cartoons, you've probably seen some of it. Yeah, now I'm doing my own thing.
I want to talk about each of you. What inspired you guys to get involved in animation to begin with, and what was the first animation you ever made yourselves?
Great question.
Oh, actually, for me, it was kind of easy. It was, in Israel, we have to go to the army, so that's what I did. I had a lot of time to kind of think there what I wanted to do, because I used to be a musician, play the violin, and I knew that that's not kind of the only thing I was interested in spending all my time with, and I wanted to do a lot of other things. I wanted to act, I wanted to draw, I wanted to edit, I wanted to create sound. So I think I read the curriculum for an art school for the animation department, and I was kind of amazed to see that you study all these things, and when you're an independent animator, you do all these things. You animate, you learn illustration, you sometimes edit sounds, also you act. And I like that idea of kind of being my own production company and doing just a little bit of everything that I love doing. So instead of kind of trying to focus on one thing, I was happy enough to do a lot of what I like doing in one project.
I'm actually not an animator. I'm a producer, so like I get to be paid to be a professional fan. Really, like it's all the animators. They're the talented ones, and I'm just kind of like the rudder of the ship, to make sure that we don't, go into the cliffs, which is really fun. So like professional fan. If I was going to talk about the first thing that I did without like a safety net, was this past year we did this kids cartoon called Max at Midnight. And we kind of just cobbled together a bunch of people to put it out directly on YouTube. We got a few people involved. Lee was the voice of the cat in it, which was fun. And we found like this ragtag team of animators from across the world, and just all kind of came together and put together this passion project. And at the end of a month, we had 12 episodes that went on a channel with no subscribers. And at the end of the year, we had 250,000 subscribers on that one channel. And it's just kind of like, it's kind of a drug, Like when somebody watches and engages in your content, you just want to keep doing it again and again and again, and it's a problem. But it's really fun.
Yeah, so I'm pretty young, and I was just recently a teenager, and that's pretty much when I decided that just growing up, as a teenager, I just got into all these cartoons that were running on the air, and I was like, wow, they're starting to tell these new, different stories. The first one that I really got into was Adventure Time, and they were starting to tell different stories with cartoons. And I was like, that's really cool. And I pretty much just decided when I was 15 that I'm going to be an animator, and I want to have my own show. And so the first thing that I made was a pilot for the same show that I'm still working on. And no one has ever seen it except for myself. It's on a hard drive somewhere. No one will ever see it, but it's got the same characters and the same concept as the project that I'm still working on, but it's changed drastically because I've learned so much since making it. And now I'm actually proud of my work, and I will show it to people. So.
What were some of the changes?
How I draw it and how it's made, and not terrible 17-year-old ideas. Oh yeah, I know how to write a story. I've never written a story before, but I know how. So that's what's changed.
Well, I animated a lot when I was a kid. My grandmother loves to tell people that I've wanted to make cartoons since I was 6. I'm 31 now. But I don't actually animate anything myself. I do everything but that part of the production. So the first cartoon, I guess, was the first episode that we made, which was released in 2012. And yeah, I mean, I suppose your taste for cartoons, I mean, I used to tape VHS copies of cartoons after school and then watch them over and over again until the tape fell apart. I mean, or like banded. It's unrealistic that the plastic of the VHS would actually fall apart. I feel like I went a little too far. But yeah, no, just obsessed with cartoons and what they're capable of. And when adult comedy in cartoons became more of a thing after Adult Swim, and when shows like Archer started showing that you didn't need to have a block of animated content for it to survive, you could just have one good show. Because before that, there were only these ones like The Simpsons or Family Guy where it just kind of like stood out, the ones that had really huge production values and stuff. And after, wow, it's democratized itself a bit. And anyway, I've gone off topic, but
What were the animations and cartoons that inspired you guys?
My biggest inspiration is a kids show on Disney XD called Gravity Falls. I just love the kind of stories they tell, and they insert a lot of those jokes that are aimed at adults so that the adults can enjoy it as well when their kids are watching it. And I hear parents all the time talking about how it's such a relief that their kids are watching Gravity Falls and Steven Universe instead of the kids' cartoons that they're used to, which are just so trite and aimed at children entirely. So that's what I want to kind of go for, is more of a all audiences kind of thing that everyone will enjoy. And that's where I came from.
I'm constantly inspired by cartoons, but the thing that drew me to animation in the first place was good characters. And it's always what we go back to. And when we're talking about creating content for the web, budget's always an issue, as all of us can attest. It's really expensive. If there are any filmmakers in the audience, I'm sure you know it's expensive to just make anything. But if you're doing animation, like multiply that by 10. Or 100, or whatever, depending on what level of quality you're doing. But if you have great characters, that's what keeps you coming back over and over and over again. And Disney XD is doing a lot of really interesting stuff. There's a show, Star vs. the Forces of Evil, which is it's like a new version of Buffy. If there are any Buffy fans, Star vs. the Forces of Evil, in that it's like a girl going through high school, and there's all these magical, supernatural things that are happening, but it's like a really obvious parallel to going through puberty and crushes on boys and being popular in school and pleasing your parents and passage of time. But there are these things that can be visualized in a medium that's just a lot more. For me at least, more powerful to take in, because I have this, I have a very visual imagination, and if you can see this world into an animator's mind and how they look at a certain thing in a certain way, it just kind of sticks with you, especially if it's a character that you love, because you look at the shows that you watch, and for me, I constantly think of the character name first before the show.
No, I I think I was always more inspired by adult animation because that's just kind of what I like more. We're just, my husband is sitting over there, we're just rewatching old Simpsons right now because we had like FX for a few minutes.
God, it was so good.
So, and we're like, oh, this show. I knew that I was always in love with that show. I mean, it's kind of the first answer you get from a lot of comedians and a lot of animators. It's always cliche, but now, but it's not. Simpsons is just, it's one of those shows. It's
Good writing, it's great characters. It's okay.
And you know the old seasons, and just watching them, I had no idea how much I was influenced. Watching it again and again by the old seasons, they're just great. I think like after kind of being immersed in Simpsons for so long because I watched it from a very young age. I think one of those shows that really kind of turned that light bulb for me was it's kind of odd because it's small and have you ever watched Clone High?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Chris Miller and Phil Lord. It was kind of the small show that didn't go on too much, but they screened it in Israel when I was in high school, and I loved it so much. I loved the design of it was kind of new and sharp and interesting than what I was used to, and the humor was very much me at the time, and now that was kind of the thing that really I was like, I want to do this, I want to do something like this. Plus, both shows do deal a lot with history and pop culture, which are two subjects that I love when they kind of bring them into comedy, and those Simpsons.
I mean, as a kid, Count Duckula, Garfield and Friends, which is a bit of a risky one to say out loud, but I was fucking crazy about Garfield. Like, I used to read him over and over again. It was so sad. The Simpsons as a musical a comedy education, like you were saying. Nowadays, I mean, there was like a period with like online stuff, like I loved Weeble and David Firth, and that was kind of pushing what could be said, and that's really that, I think, gave us a lot of elbow space in terms of like the content that you can start talking about, you know? Mm-hmm. But now, Rick and Morty, if it ever went off television, I would kill myself.
Don't do
We'll keep it up.
It's great.
No, just like to burn a restaurant for a sauce. That's what everyone's doing right now.
Yeah, I want to show that people assault fast food workers on my behalf, you know, I want to get that big. And for me to just like not even know that, you know, I would be so rude. That was probably an awful thing to say. BoJack Horseman's amazing. Everything that Adult Swim are doing, like I loved Xavier Renegade Angel when that was on. Have you guys ever seen that?
I didn't watch it.
Oh my god, it's so intense. 12-Ounce Mouse, which has got one good episode, but it's really, really good.
12-ounce mouse.
Yeah, it's like
just fun to say.
It's drawn on like the back of used printer paper, and it's real bitty and awful, and the humor is completely off the wall. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't recommend the full season, but the pilot's wonderful. I suppose in terms of like a proper education and what I like to write about, it's more like live action stuff, like you were saying, you know, like Black Books, sitcom Black Books. I like Faulty Towers.
I think some of you guys can speak to this and some may not be able to. Obviously we all, as independent filmmakers, kind of start out making our own things, and then at some point we have to go get money from other people who then get to have influence on the things that we are making. You guys have, some of you have gotten notes in the past. How do you deal with a network or a financier coming in and trying to influence the work that you do?
The reason we're smiling is because yesterday we had a tiny debate about
She loves notes. I hate notes.
Yeah, I really do. I mean, you know.
We'll start with the positive, and then I'll bring it down.
Good notes. When it's bad notes, we try to do kind of I just talked to her, and we're working with Disney on a certain independent thing that we're doing with them. I can't say more than that. But I always try to, if I get notes and I try to find the good in them, and if there's something I don't like, I'm going to say one thing positive, one thing I like this, but maybe like this, and one thing like, no, this is, I have things to say about that. And, you know, usually they do like networks, from my experience, do like my input as well. Like, no, I think this one doesn't work because, you know, this has been said a lot in the past, and I think we can do something fresh and new with this. But in general, when they're good, yes, I love network notes. I like hearing other opinions because I am dependent, I do sit at home a lot. It's just me in front of the computer and my husband, and we do need kind of these input voices when they are when they're good, or when we do feel like we're working with someone that we can respond well to. And that's also work on your behalf. You find the people that you work well with. Like I used to work with, now I work with Tiffany's production company on a certain project. I used to work with another production company that was really great. They were great, but we didn't speak like 100% the same language as your production company. That we got a lot of notes, but every one of them was like, they get us, they get what we're trying to say. It's like, it's another lead, but from the future that knows more. I was like, oh, God. Yeah. No, this is ugly. And I'm like, fuck, yeah, she's right. And so that's why I'm very excited, even when I like them less.
That makes sense. I mean, like, it's different, because, like, I could never do what you guys do. Like, if you guys haven't seen her YouTube channel, I highly recommend checking it out. It's Only Lee on YouTube, and they do this, like, autobiographical, like, animated. How often do you guys post? How often are you guys posting?
We used to post like every month, but now it's like once a year.
But it's like it's crazy. Like, it's just two people doing everything, and I'm always working by committee, so, like, we usually have, like, amongst our team focus group these things a lot, and we like to keep in the financiers, because, like, you guys are doing it yourself. When we have people, like, giving us money, there's an obligation to make sure that they're happy with the money they're spending, and we keep them involved, but there's a little bit of a learning curve with animation. A lot of the financiers I've worked with in the past have come from the live action world or not entertainment at all. So they don't know how to give notes until we've already gone down the path of no return.
Yeah.
So, like, you know what I mean?
Stop motion, like, a lot of times, like, when we do something, it's great because we don't get coverage, right? So there's no way for us, they're like, well, can you fix this? The answer is no. it's no. We gave you opportunity back there for notes, but right now, like, and because they don't know the process, sometimes they don't actually even know how to properly know, which is interesting.
Yeah, like we had a scenario where there was a pretty intricate fight sequence, and every cell is drawn. It's hand drawn, so you have like a person flipping through the air, like dodging arrows and like swords and stuff. And they're like, this is cool, but could it be in like over a waterfall and stuff? Water is like constantly moving in the background. It's a lot of work, So it's like that, yes. But that's an additional 6 months. Yeah. We'll have to go back and do that.
More money.
Yeah. Right, and it's
I can do whatever you want.
Yeah, and to be fair, a lot of the times, it's not that the notes are wrong, it's that they're not timed well. I had a professor in college that once told me about writing, if somebody has a note about your work that they say, this isn't working, 99% of the time they're right, because it's not working for them, that's subjective. But if they try to tell you how to fix it, they're almost always wrong, because they're not as engaged or as close to the project as you are. Like me as the producer, I wouldn't even be. Like the director or the animator is the person that would have to figure that out. And I'm kind of like a support system to help them. Like again, the rudder of the ship.
Yeah, I work entirely by myself, and I've never received any money or I've never gone to any network for anything. The first notes I've ever gotten on my own work, other than YouTube comments, have been from Jason just in the past month or so. So I have no room to talk about what notes are like, but I imagine that they're terrible. I hate them.
I'm with you. I despise notes. Because I've always thought of what they suggest, it's always just like, hey, it's a lot like, it should be more like this, and I'm like, I hate that thing. That's why it wasn't like that. Or like, how do things usually work this way? It's like, I know they usually work that way, but that's somebody else's work.
Well, that's a bad note. Yeah. No, I mean, if they're like, I will give an example. When I studied in art school, a lot of the teachers were, very egocentric, my way or the highway, and a lot of the notes I've gotten is, I don't like this, and that's not a good note, because I don't give a fuck if you don't like this. You should give me the notes that you're supposed to give is, okay, I'm living through your brain right now, and according to what you like doing, which is, I don't know, creatures from some lagoon horror flick. I don't like this, but I know that this is what you want to do. So maybe a better way for you to cultivate your idea is frame it like this. Or I don't understand what these creatures' motives are, or whatever.
There are good notes. There are good notes. So I would get a bunch of comedian friends over, and we would watch the animatic before we would commit to animation. And the notes that come out of those are wonderful because it's just like, why is that person doing that? That seems kind of mean.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I get these. I had a note from somebody the other day. It was like, hey, I think what you're doing is great, but the thing is, like, you're going for this really heavy emotional, philosophical angle where it's like turmoil, but then it's also supposed to be a comedy, and you've really got to pick one. And I'm like, no, I bloody don't. Like have you watched television? So I don't think there's a yes or no answer to it. I really think it depends on the note, doesn't it? Sometimes there's things you just haven't thought of. Sometimes you get your both feet into something and you can't see the forest for the trees. It's a mixed metaphor.
Well, it's like what you said about like David Firth and those guys, like breaking boundaries in the subject matter that you could cover, you know. Nobody would have thought like who would, if he pitched Salad Fingers. Has everybody seen Salad Fingers here? It's crazy, but it's wonderful. And if he pitched it to somebody, they would be like, "Don't make that, please."
Today, I could.
But that's they broke down those.
Yeah,
those
it's just like this script is an affront to God.
Yeah, exactly. But there's like levels of that. There's levels of that in everything. You know, like Adventure Time is a throwback to like a Steamboat Willie era of animation of like fluid form, but like updated themes and characters. And there's I think it's public, but some of the executives at Frederator wanted to pass on it initially because they didn't get it. And it was the voice. It was one person in particular that was there and said, "We have to do this." And they tested it out, and now it's like this giant thing.
Yeah.
But it's because it's this leap of faith you got to take in certain things, and that's why it's like. That's why network notes can be frustrated.
Yeah.
But hopefully, if you get to a point and there's like good communication up to that point where you're saying, "This is the point of no return. When we commit to animation, this is what it's going to be."
Yeah.
Then it's got to be clear that like once you get to the finalizing of the project, especially with digital, where you have like no budget to go back and fix these things, that it's only going to be like micro fixes. You know, like, hey, when they're waving their hands, it turns into a flipper. Like, that's not normal. Go back and fix that. It's like, that's a good note. You know.
Yeah. And I think also when you have that good communication that's been built, then you are able to be able to push back on a note as well and be like, I mean, this note, you probably wouldn't say this is a bad note, but like, this note here isn't really giving me clarity as to what you're looking for.
Yes.
Can you please elaborate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Communication.
Yeah,
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. As we just touched on a moment ago, obviously, like all these projects, they start with having no money. We are not in a situation where we're Pixar, we're scraping to get this stuff together, and it's different than a blogger on YouTube who's all their expenses are the camera and themselves. Mm-hmm. This involves more. I mean, it may just be yourself, but there's so much more time involved. Can you guys talk to about how you go about attempting to get funding, or talk about financiers or networks that you pitch to? Anything along those lines?
Just don't.
We're gonna keep that.
That's my advice.
I had to save up initially. I saved up like $2,000 and then told a bunch of animators, hey, I want to pay you a very small amount for a very long period of time. But at the end of it, we'll have a cartoon, and that worked somehow. And then in the later ones, we had a failed Kickstarter, 2 failed Kickstarters, and then 1 successful Indiegogo to make the sequel to that, which we made. And then off the back of that, we made the pilot that we've just done, and these incremental motions towards being financed. We found an angel investor a couple of years ago who's been helping us out ever since. And God, that's wonderful. I don't know. I wouldn't be sitting here if that hadn't happened. I'm so lucky. But because I don't animate, it has to cost a lot of money. Because you got to spend it, right? You got to use other people's time.
Yeah. It's honestly, I've been lucky enough to work with big talent that attracts financiers. So if I have a talent involved in a project that almost guarantees that there's going to be some sort of notoriety behind it, they either have connections of their own, or through the people that I know in LA, I can say, hey, this family or this actor wants to be in this cartoon. Do you want to be attached to it? And usually that's enough. I don't think that's always the case. And the other thing is that animation on a television level, it's around $30,000 per completed minute, which is absurd. Versus something on digital, we're looking at budgets that can be, $3,000 a minute, sometimes far less than that. And if you can show that comparison and show them the level of quality that they're going to get, that's usually enough to get people excited. But it's not an easy thing to do. It's finding the right partners too, because going back to network notes, taking money from somebody, you're also obligated to deliver on what you're agreeing to. So like some people, they give money and they think that makes them the director, and that's not necessarily the case. They want to overstep a little bit, and other people are just excited to be a part of the process and want to give, just to be involved.
How do you deal with that situation?
How do I deal with what?
The situation where if someone's giving money and then they're overstepping.
Well, so like I kind of play the role of like bodyguard from the creative team. So like if Lee was doing something and I was producing it, the notes would be coming to me first, and there'd be a lot of like communication to say like, okay, well I know where Lee's head is, and I don't want to bother her with this stuff, so we'll have the conversation, and I kind of talk them down to like a reasonable note before it gets through. So they still feel like they're being heard, but they're not.
Animators are kept safe.
Yeah, because in a creative, especially in animation, there's so much time put into it, and like in digital, you're working on a skeleton crew, whereas normally you have like, tons of people. I don't know how many people work on a Simpsons episode, but it's got to be a lot.
I assume so.
Yeah. So like, when you're working on a 5-minute cartoon for the web, and you have maybe 1 or 2 people animating it, it's really important that those people stay happy. So I do my best to make sure that they remain happy, and that the feedback that they're getting is constructive as opposed to like destructive.
It's funny, you notice the change when you get a producer and they're like, oh, that's a really horrible thing for you to say, that note, maybe I'll just be a filter, I'll just lens that out, and bless you for doing it, because it really helps everything along.
Yeah, that's important. Like, and for me, it's usually like, they give me the note, I stew for a second, I go, I have like a 3 minutes, and then I call back, okay, about that note.
I'm a bit of a control freak in that sense. I like seeing the note in their bare naked truth and how they are. Unless it's like, finance things, that it's usually my manager. But stepping away from, the networks and the managers and everything, when I do my own things, when I started out, it was kind of more of a passion channel. It was kind of something I did in my free time. And that's something that a lot of my friends could kind of come into, like, can you help me out with backgrounds? I'm not very good at backgrounds, voices and stuff like that. It was very contained and very kind of small, and not that now it's a big production, but I do most of the voices, and one male friend did most of all the other voices. When the channel grew, and I opened a Patreon, which is a sort of a kind of a Kickstarter where you can get fundings per project or per month from fans, so that helps a little with hiring more creators for voice talents and stuff like that. So yeah, it's mostly my Patreon page, a little bit of what I earn on YouTube, and the occasional sponsorship. Although it's very hard to get sponsorships for animation. That's usually how I work when I create my own things for my channel. When it's outside projects, that's usually a different kind of funding.
It's actually really important that you touch on Patreon and like Indiegogo, and crowdfunding is a big part of creating animation. In Frederator, we did Be a Puppy Cat, which was completely crowdfunded.
Oh man, that did so well on Kickstarter.
Yeah, it did very well. I mean,
$800 or something?
What's that?
800 grand it did.
But
It did help. It helps when you have the Adventure Time Network.
Wow.
No, but you did have the benefit of also releasing a couple before, and people were like,
Right. So there's
I like
a
this,
difference
yeah.
between like, you know, an independent creator trying to do just wholly independent animation, like, but Patreon's a really cool thing in that you can put yourself out there and let people help fund the production, which is a really like liberating way to create new content. The problem is to get to that point, you usually have to do a lot of legwork.
Yeah, I think
It's very
you have to have the proof is in the pudding, and you know, because so what we did is we made a 20-minute episode that was just all animatic, and then with the money that I'd saved up, I made 5 minutes of it fully animated and fully realized with backgrounds and whatever. And then it gave people the idea of what it would look like, and it wasn't super expensive to do to set up that first Kickstarter. Because they don't trust you. If you're just some person who says like, hey, here's some art and I've got a script, no, I'm not going to give you all my money. Like,
Yeah.
Patreon is nice because the way it's working, first of all, they will know that they will see the result quite quickly because, I make very short animations. So it kind of feels like, I'm going to do this product, do you want to pay me for this product? And a lot of people are willing to do that because, you do have the rewards, it's not a lot of money. You can even put like $1 over there. And they do, and they know they will see the result quite quickly. Plus, I do release like shorts as rewards over there.
Are they just for your Patreon people?
Oh, what?
Are they just for your Patreon patrons? What do you call them?
Patrons.
Oh,
Yeah, they are
patrons.
patrons.
Patron? Yeah, patrons.
Yeah, that's also kind of a nice, sexy name they gave them over there.
it's like
No, I mean, you don't want to.
That's what they are.
That's why it's even in the language of how you kind of distribute it. I never say donors. I never say. I never. The wording I use for is the wording on Patreon, like be my patrons, like patron of the art. I like that.
Very fancy.
That's a different kind of But it's a nice tool.
Yeah, it's amazing how now there's so much understanding of how media is created. There's people online who look at a cartoon, and even though they know nothing about animation, they can say, wow, that took a lot of work. I'd like to pay you to make more because I know that if you don't have money, you're not going to be able to make more. So that kind of the enlightenment, the information is getting out, and people need to be aware of how much work goes into the content they consume because it's so disposable now.
Well, that brings me into my next point of let's talk about how do we actually build an audience? Like, how do you reach out, and how does social media play into that?
friends really help. Like knowing people
no
and
friends.
okay, well, but speaking from personal experience,
How do you make those?
well, I mean, like when you start making stuff, you attract some people who like your stuff, and it's not just your average everyday viewer. You know, we had so Natasha Allegri was a fan of the show when we released it, who made Bee and Puppy Cat, and we were featured on that Kickstarter. We were running a Kickstarter at the same time, so that did great for it. I mean, ultimately the Kickstarter came up a little bit short, but we got like $9,000 in a day off of just that one link that she sent off to all the backers. But I think you start making stuff, and then the audience should just kind of follow, really. There's probably better ways of doing it, but I feel like if you make a personal cultural impact on the thing that you're trying to do, people will be like, oh, okay, that person likes a bunch of stuff that's condensed into this one thing that's come up. I like a bunch of that stuff, and I can see a lot of that in it, in a sense, you know. But on the other hand, so what I would do is I would go on Ask Reddit threads that were like 1 or 2 hours old that looked like they were getting real traction, and I would see if there was anything relevant to my show that I could put into a comment, and then I would be like, it's like, oh, what's the nicest thing anyone's ever done for you? It's like, oh, well, you know, a Hollywood actor who earns, you know, upward of $1 million a film has decided that he'll act in my cartoon for free, and I don't know what I would have done without that.
And here's the link.
Yeah, and then, you know, we gained 800 Facebook fans in a day off of a link like that. You know, it's kind of like bootstrapping, that sort of, you have to pay anything, you know, that's the only thing.
Work hard. It means not just kind of, you know, doing something good and kind of waiting. It doesn't cut it. You need to put your name out there. You need to put your work out there. When I started out and I made my things, I mean, the very first video I did, it was kind of a mix of series intros that I kind of manipulated. That kind of did well. But that was a lucky thing that happened, which I didn't do a lot, but it still got viral. That's lucky. That doesn't happen all the time when you're just starting off. The next video I did, I decided I'm going to work hard on this one because I don't know what would happen, so I sent it to sites that I thought would be relevant. What I did, the first video I did was kind of a look on female fans of pop culture. Stuff like that was kind of the idea of the video. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start looking out for websites that are written by women who are fans of pop culture, and I will send that to them and say, hey, this is something I did on the thing. Maybe you'd be interested in publishing it. You're not disturbing them. They are looking for these kind of things, all these pop culture sites. So I was looking for those sites that kind of publish interesting videos and fun videos and pop culture videos, and did that. Every video I put out. Now when I publish videos, a lot of those sites already know my content because they've been around for a while, so I don't need to work that hard. But when I started out, I knew, okay, this is a parody on Thor, and I'm going to send it to movie sites. This is a parody that I did on Arrested Development. I'm going to send it to television sites. It is hard work, and when you get better and better at it, and when you start being known, you can work a little less because they already know who you are. So, but yeah, it's just knowing what your brand, I hate that word, knowing your brand is, knowing who you are, knowing what your content is about, and looking out for the people who you think would be interested in that. You're doing something that has to do with doing something, animals. Sending it to, finding out, because the internet is big and there's a lot of news outlets and anything, so kind of searching out those people that love publishing new things and sending them your stuff.
There's also different rules for different platforms. Like, people watch content and consume it differently on Facebook than they do on YouTube, than they do on Snapchat, than they do. And it's a little overwhelming, and it can seem a little daunting, I think, in the beginning. And I'm sure these three can talk about it more than I could, because I never came at it from a creator's perspective. But like, when you're just like putting stuff into the void, nobody's watching. It's like, it's a little soulless, I imagine. But to their point, it's like, it's finding those communities that are highly engaged, that might be interested, and slowly building. Somebody I used to work with used to say that the first 1,000 followers is the hardest to come by. Everybody wants to join a party, and they're, when you have a video that's uploaded to a channel with 0 followers and no name recognition and nobody knows who you are, why would I subscribe to you? There's no promise that there's going to be other videos. There's no promise that this is good quality, and there's so much out there. So you need somebody to kind of like vouch for you first, or you need to be in that safe space. Like Reddit has like a really engaged community, or if like Natasha is talking about you, that's like a tastemaker that can like bring people in. And then as far as like sustaining that audience goes, it's different for everybody. Like, you'll hear people say like, oh, you got to put out a regular amount of content, and that's not necessarily true for animation. Like, in fact, I used to meet with the YouTube team in LA, and they would say, to one of the people I work with, I don't know how you're doing this, but you're getting more views when you're not uploading. Like, David Firth, for example, was a guy who posted like just a few videos over the course of a year, and I don't think he's even posted anything in the last year. I know he started doing a lot more, but like, if you create a character that's so timeless, people will come back over and over again. It might not be enough to like sustain you, but I think as long as you're putting in the time to create really good, content in terms of character, and you're engaging with your audience on whatever platform it is, whatever rules those are that are authentic to who you are, and you're not forcing yourself too much. That's the only way to do it. I mean, I think. What do you guys think? Because you guys have done it. Like,
yeah, it's really hard to force yourself to use a platform that you don't feel comfortable using. Surprisingly, the platform that I found the most success on putting my work out was actually Twitch. I saw a post on Reddit one day saying, hey, it was on the animation subreddit, and someone said, hey, does anyone live stream themselves animating? Because Twitch Creative was just coming up at the time. And I was like, that's a great idea. I'll do that. And I am a hand-drawn animator. I draw on paper. So that's something that draws people in, even if it's just for a couple minutes, and they're like, you're doing an animation on paper? And I got a few people interested, and I met a much larger streamer, and we became friends, and he promoted me, and so I have more followers on Twitch than I do on any other platform.
Cool. That's really cool.
And that's where I debut all my animations first. I show them as kind of a payback for all the stuff they've given me.
That's cool.
That's incredible. That's a world I don't even know about.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
Yeah, Twitch Creative.
It's
was
definitely
really
for
cool.
gamers, right?
It was originally a game streaming site, so you'd watch people play video games, but they initiated a program because some people would just do non-video games. And they were like, let's market that. So they created Twitch Creative, which is where creators show themselves making art. It's kind of gone downhill since because of some of the platform changes that got bought by Amazon. But initially, it was a really cool way for painters and musicians to get exposure. And I found a few hundred followers on that platform. It was nice.
Sorry, we're working with small budgets here. Do you guys have any advice or hacks or just tricks to be able to make that tiny amount of money stretch to a larger place and be able to put out a quality product?
Do everything yourself. That's what I learned. Everything. But seriously, the more that you're able to do on your own projects, the less you have to rely on other people. Because ultimately, the amount of time that it takes to find someone who knows what they're doing, you could have learned the fundamentals of that skill in that same amount of time.
That's true.
And so if you're willing to put forth that effort, you don't have to rely on anyone else. And eventually you do. You can't voice every single character in your own cartoon. Like you had to bring in a guy to do guy voices. So like eventually you start talking to other people to help you out a little bit. And like I can't produce music, so I have to find music. But the more you can do yourself, it might take longer, but ultimately the more money you save. So when you have $0 to your name, you can still make something.
Yeah.
I will add to what you're saying, because for me, yeah, I was kind of a very good friend at the time that voiced my characters. But I was just telling you yesterday that limitations actually, certain limitations that you have actually can benefit your work a lot. I don't know if it was limitations or not, but in more popular girls in school, there are a few female characters voiced by.
Yes.
And that's really funny. That works. It creates a very unique kind of voice. And those kind of mistakes or limitations that you have in your animation can kind of bring in something like super unique, as I'm sure. I think you told me in your animation that and I do that a lot in my animation too. I don't make the characters walk because it takes so much time. I have like one cartoon in which the character walks, and when Oren saw that one, and my husband, he was like, "What just happened?" It's like there's something unique happening here. I'm not sure why. Like, yes, the character walks.
Oh, was that the shot transition in the most recent one? In the Stranger Things mashup? Was it that?
Oh, no. The walk was a little easier, but before that, I did like a Birdman video in which the character walks and it's like, and in most of my videos they don't, but that cultivated a certain language because I needed to use a lot of medium shots and a lot of shots where you don't see the legs because the character's kind of, wobbling and you kind of assume they're walking. So limitations like that actually, even if they cheapen what you're doing, they're not. They are cultivating a language or doing something unique. But I will also add another thing, which is, yes, you should learn as many things that you need, but even if there's something that you know you're not good at and you need someone to help you out with, like I need someone to help me out with making themes and music if I need some original music for my animation. But it did help that I studied music in the past because I can help them. I know how to direct them better to doing exactly what I'm interested in them doing. So even if you're not, perfect in everything, do learn a little bit about everything so you can direct people better.
I definitely didn't plan on being an animator when I was 15. I wanted to be a director of animation, but I had to force myself to learn animation, and now, even though I have yet to hire my first animator, I know what to look for in animators so that they understand my vision, and I can talk to them in a way that I imagine you probably struggle with this more than I do because you are not an animator. So you're kind of like speaking two different languages and they're trying to translate what you're saying. I hear this all the time about music in movies and whatnot, where directors are completely musically illiterate and the musicians, the composers that they're working with are just like head in their hands, like trying to figure out, okay, you think you want this, but you don't, because it's terrible. You have a terrible idea. So definitely learning skills, not only just to do it yourself, but to figure out how to find other people to do it is convenient, especially when you're working so small and with so little money.
Like our most recent episode cost like tens of thousands of dollars, and I'm still doing the audio editing, the mastering, the mixing. I'm drawing pictures and assembling storyboards, timing the storyboards, editing everything. You know, every step of it that isn't directly drawing or animating something, I've ended up having to do myself because the money's just not bloody there. You know, you have to. You do, that's like you're saying, do your best way.
It's good to be able to just step in there. I mean, I do those things too. I have like a post-production background, but I know myself as like, I think of myself as the worst one of anybody I know. So like, I know what I like and I know how to get it there, but I'll only jump in if I need to. And budget, stretching the budget is like my greatest anxiety. It's what I'm constantly, obsessed with. So like, there are a couple things. When it comes to scripting, making sure that there's not too much action, or if there is action, that it's very crucial to the story because action sequences are going to be more expensive. There's a lot more going on. That the dialogue is great, or maybe there's a limited amount of locations. Because the locations, you can reuse locations, and in that way you can actually stretch your budget because the per minute cost will go down as you get longer if you're using the same location over and over again. And then also personally, like when it comes to recording the audio, I like having everybody in the same room. It helps with
We do that too.
It helps with acting performance because the actors are actually feeding off each other, but also you're getting everything in one setting. And there are certain people that are like virtuosos that can just go forever. Like there's stories about a Billy Crystal that has to be on his own because he'll just like, he comes up with stuff on the spot and he's incredible. I haven't worked with somebody like that yet. I would love to. But for the most part, I just love having that real-time feedback with the actors there. And that seems, like, it's a small part, but like if you have to go back into the studio to record, even if the studio is your living room, wherever it is, every day that you have to invest in doing that is somebody's time and potential money and commitment. So if you can get it all in one setting, it's huge.
Yeah, I mean, finding cheat ways in animation. I mean, I think one of my teachers used to say animation is cheating because you find kind of ways around doing, okay, I need to do this scene and it needs to be this big, cost this much, but I can also do this and that might be just as good and maybe that would even be a better kind of solution. In one of my animations, a character had to say like a very long dialogue. And I was like, I don't have the time to do that lip sync. I don't have the time to do that acting. And then I thought, okay, maybe I'll do that in his head. Maybe I'll do like he's thinking this. Not only did it cut like a few days of work, it was funnier. Like it works a lot better that way that he's thinking about it because you can kind of see him, his internal voice is going crazy and he's trying to kind of make himself a little more, civil in front of other people. So that was really funny. Another example was I did like a Stranger Things Peanuts mashup, and I did the opening.
Yeah, it's really funny.
If you haven't seen it yet, you have to watch it.
The opening shot is like that Charlie Brown pan on the ice ring over there where all the kids are ice skating, but I didn't have the time to do a lot of kids because it's a lot more characters, and I didn't want to use my characters. Ice skating, I just didn't have the time. So I went and said, okay, I'll just do the pan without. And it came out nicer, it came out cleaner. It just felt like, now that I see it and I'm thinking about those kids on the ring, it doesn't seem right. It just, that was kind of something that I gave up and I was a little sad about. But going back and looking at it, it just looks right. It just looks better. It looks like less.
Well, yeah, and that specific shot is so iconic that making a change to it actually informs people of what you're going for.
Yeah, that's true. That's also something. Yeah, that works. So kind of all these finding ways around is like the heart of animation, I think.
Having characters off screen too.
That
was the big cheat that we all say. It's like, we don't have to animate anything because the person's off screen talking to them. Everybody does it.
They're just kind of listening. It's awesome.
I mean, for my own part, like if there's anybody here who just doesn't animate at all and has no skills with drawing whatsoever, like my big thing was just bullshitting, like just selling people on the idea that I was trying to make, and I showed up to animation grad screenings and I picked out the ones I liked, and then went up to the people afterwards and was just like, hey, I've got this big idea, you know, do you want to help me out with it? I've not got very much money, but you know, you're going to come straight out of university and be authoring your own shots, which is a big deal for animators. And that, and then also not trusting yourself very much to do a lot of the things that you think you can do. Writing is the big one. If you don't write every day, like animate every day, you're gonna suck at writing, and you're not gonna make something good. Full stop. Like there's no exceptions.
Yeah.
And you have to hire an animator if you want to make something funny and tight and good, and it speaks to people. You know, you can have the concept, but there's a bunch of shows out there that are just premises masquerading as shows. There's no heart or soul to them because people who have made them, you know, it's like, oh, that seems cool, I'll do that thing. And it's like, no, what about your thing? You know, like, be better than the thing that you, I don't know, it's hard to explain. But
Don't be derivative.
yeah, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's just like shows that they don't have a story to tell. They just said, oh, wouldn't it be cool if, you know, dinosaurs and robots were living at the same time? That's a show, right? No, well, not really. You want a story with the characters that you care about, so that's, you're kind of approaching it the wrong way if you're just saying, I like robots.
I'm like racking my head for dinosaur robot shows.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, we're going time go, and I want to make sure if people have a question or two, you can probably take 2 or 3. Are we almost time?
Yeah, questions?
Maybe 1 or 2.
1 or 2 questions. 1 or 2 questions. Does anyone have one?
You have to fight for it.
Yes.
What are the actual tool sets that you're using? Like the platform, software?
Local programs.
I use Flash. I use Adobe Flash for animating. Actually, I'm going to be talking about Flash in Adobe Max next week. And I also use Premiere for editing. I use Cubase for sound editing. I don't know if anyone uses that anymore. It's kind of old, but that's what I've been using for years.
Yeah, digital. I mean, it's almost across the board is Adobe product, Adobe Creative Suite. So After Effects, Flash. There is some precedent for people using Harmony. It's very expensive.
Actually, I think that's the standard now in the U.S. for rig-based animation.
Yeah.
Toon Harmony.
Oh, definitely.
I'm talking for
For
digital.
independent, yes. I think
Yes.
everyone uses Adobe when they're independent.
Yeah, if you have the money to spend on Harmony, you don't necessarily need it. But if you want to like transition into professional level, it's good to learn that.
Yeah, I definitely, since I draw everything on paper, I scan it in, color in Photoshop, composite in After Effects, and that's pretty much it. I still edit the sound in After Effects.
Oh man, really?
That's fun.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's not a good idea, but it's just the only way that I know how right now.
Cool.
Yes.
How much would you say is a good fee to get to an animator? Or like
A what, sir?
A fee?
Fee.
Oh, a fee.
How much do we pay our animators?
Well, this is something I don't know about because it's not very much. You sell them on the idea of the ocean open.
Less than they deserve is the
No,
Yeah,
it really depends on the complexity of the project and experience level. Like some people are willing to do stuff for below what they should. I like to explain what they should get, like a rate I think that's fair. But again, it depends on the complexity. It's usually around like 2,000 to 3,000 per completed minute. That's normal because there's going to be a lot of work going on. But if you're doing something that's going to be a lot simpler, you can get below that, but you have to like creatively problem solve with.
Well, I've talked to some animators that have said that independently, if someone comes to them and commissions them for animation, they'll work for 1,000 a minute.
That happens too.
So
yeah, sure.
if they're doing all the work, they'll simplify and they'll streamline as much as possible and charge you 1,000 a minute. They're only going to spend 3 weeks on it,
Yeah.
but that's a
Oh, that's it.
It's also kids into for free. Oh, we're done.
You're out.